Two. What's going on, guys? We're back here on the YouTube page for the Connor and Mark Show. Alongside Mark Rogers, I'm Connor Gabe. With the NFL draft fast approaching on Thursday night, we're recording this on Tuesday night. Almost about a little over 48 hours until the Jacksonville Jaguars are officially on the clock for the 2022 NFL draft. And it is one of the most unpredictable drafts, I think, in the recent years. We don't really know where everyone's going to be slotted at, but there's a lot of rumors that will be coming out over the next 48 hours about teams who are going to want to trade up, trade back, and top prospects where they may fall slotted in that draft order. Mark, I know we discussed a little bit we actually didn't discuss a whole lot on this past week's Saturday show. It was mostly reserved for the 76ers and their playoffs, along with the Phillies and their current skid, but they've kind of rightened the ship a little bit. But with the draft fast approaching, it's a big draft for the Eagles with 2 first-round picks, so there's a lot of movement that can happen with Howie Roseman in the front office.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your point, exactly. It's one of the most unpredictable drafts. I mean, I think that's highly predicated on no quarterbacks really being, at the forefront of this draft as we've seen probably past 10 years, maybe past 20 years. There's always a quarterback, going top 5, most likely the number 1 overall pick. So just to start out for that, it makes it a very unusual draft, but also a bit of an unusual draft. I mean, the Eagles had 3 first-round picks, now down to 2. So that's, something that I don't think the Eagles have had in the past few years. So it's going to be interesting to see how they spend those picks. I know we're going to dive in to it a little bit here, but have the 15th and 18th pick. And then obviously that notable trade they made with the Saints where they traded their 16th and 19th overall pick, as well as a 6th-round pick this year. And this is where Howie Roseman really becomes a magician. Turn that into the 18th pick, a 3rd round, and a 7th round pick, and then a 2023 first round next year, and a 2024 second. So really good work there by Howie Roseman and really expanding this draft capital. But at the end of the day, Connor, as we always say, you got to draft the player and you got to hit on a lot of these first round guys. So we'll see where it goes, but sitting at the 15th and 18th spot, I mean, a lot of movement on this board already. And you're seeing some names shuffle like Hamilton. I know we were talking before the show, Thibodeau might slide out of that top 5 spot. He could be a key factor of some teams maybe moving up, possibly even the Eagles. So as unpredictable this draft is, very, highly anticipated, and a lot of guys could end up in different spots than they were projected, just even a week ago. So I'm ready. It's my favorite time of the year. Big draft guy. And again, the unpredictability is one of the best parts of this draft.
Yeah, there's a lot of unpredictability with this draft too. You got a lot. You don't really have a lock at the first pick, which is pretty uncommon, I think, this far into the game. I know there's a lot of Aiden Hutchinson, the pass rusher out of Michigan. Davon Walker, the pass rusher out of Georgia, has been another name floating around, and there's some tackles too that are in contention for the number 1 overall pick. But with only 48 hours in, you don't really know who to lock for the first overall pick. Is a little surprising. But there's an interesting tweet that was, I think this was early this morning today. It was a subtweet followed by Jeff McClain, but Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network said that some NFL teams have fewer than 15 players with the first round grades in this week's draft. So who could be some of the surprise in round 1? ? Here's 7 names to watch. And the Jeff McClain, who covers the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer, responded to this tweet, and he said the Eagles will fall into this class, I believe. That's why a trade up with the first pick seems most likely scenario to me. And if so, followed by a trade out with the second pick. The first may be easier to accomplish in both cases because there still need to be willing partners. And Ian Rappaport also said earlier today, there's been multiple teams, including the Carolina Panthers and the New York Giants, that are looking to trade back at earlier in the draft. And he says the one team that is most notable making calls to move up is the Philadelphia Eagles. So there's been a lot of smoke to the Eagles looking to move up in the board. I know Thibodeau is a name that's been thrown out before. Derek Stingley, who tested really well at his pro day, cornerback at LSU. He's someone who is right around that drop range where the Eagles could go up and get. Kyle Hamilton, like you mentioned before, the safety at Notre Dame, who didn't really have a great pro day. He didn't test well, but physically is one of the best athletes in this draft, and clearly the best safety in this draft, it looks like. So they definitely need help in the secondary. So there's a lot of names that that are top tier that the Eagles can look up and use that 15th pick and try and get up. I'd probably take right around a second round pick to get up there if you want to go from like 15 to like 6, 7, 8. But that seems like that's going to be the price around there. And it seems like the 18th pick, they could probably trade back into the 20s if they want to go back and grab somebody else. But yeah, that seems like the smoke of the day. A lot of reports have been put out about the Eagles looking like one of the teams trying to trade up. So I know you have some prospects that you've written down that you like that you'll see the Eagles want to go and get. But what do you think about that rumor? And do you think that's a likely possibility the Eagles will go up and try and get somebody?
Yeah, I really think they do. And, obviously the big talk was 3 draft picks, not going to go in with all 3. And we've already seen that, with the Saints trade to where they only have 2. But I really think it is a possibility that they go up and get a guy that, I think could be franchise changing, a cornerstone, whether it's on the offense or the defensive end, most likely going to be at that defensive end. Or on the defensive end, rather, at that D-line position. And Thibodeau would be my number 1 guy. But even a guy like Hamilton, I know you said, obviously, at the pro day, didn't look, as great as he was ranked, I guess. But the kid is still a stud and a guy that I think flies under the radar that I absolutely love. That's going to be McDuffie, Trent McDuffie out of Washington. From what I've heard and don't watch a ton of Washington football games, obviously, as they're in the Pac-12. Heard that this kid's a Swiss Army knife in the sense of, he's vicious off the blitz. He can obviously play great in the zone and really wreak havoc, obviously in the secondary. So I think that's going to be a key position. And really for the Eagles this year, it's going to be finding that guy that Slay can trust across from him. Not that Steven Nelson wasn't trustworthy, just a little older veteran guy. But if they can bring in a young stud here, I think this could really, evolve this defense to, a place that, we've probably been seeing since the early 2000s. And again, not trying to get too ahead of myself, but, could have that potential at some point. As Maddox started playing really well at the latter end of the season, obviously you got Slay back there and you got some other young guys. So I'm really excited. I think if the opportunity is there and Howie's already shown it, he's going to be aggressive and go up and get someone. But again, with the unpredictability of this draft, I mean, there could be a guy sitting, around the 10 or the 12 spot that was projected to go, 6, 7, 8. So, that's obviously going to play a major factor into it. But to answer your question, I definitely could see them moving up and getting a guy. I think the defensive end is going to be a little more prioritized than the offensive end. And that actually brings me to my next point real quick before I throw it back to you. I mean, taking a look at the skilled positions, this might be one of the lowest rated drafts in the skill position wise. So, in saying that, I mean, the top ranked quarterback right now is 23rd overall prospect. That's Malik Willis. Then it goes 30 at Kenny Pickett, 34 at Corral. So the top 3 quarterbacks aren't even in the top 20, which is unheard of. I don't think we've seen that in a draft. And, I don't know how long. You go to the running back position, the first running back, and I know obviously with a lot of the injuries and the contracts and everything like that in the past few years, the running back positions really starting to move away from top end picks more so to second round picks. But, top ranked running backs, Kenneth Walker right now at 49. And then, Breece Hall at 54 and Isaiah Spiller at 65. So that's pretty wild. And just the last one here, the tight ends, I mean, 51, 75, and 100 of the top prospects. So it's definitely going to be more of a D-line, O-line, secondary type draft. Outside of the wide receivers with Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, and Drake London. It's going to be a pretty big, O-line, D-line, and secondary draft. So going to be pretty crazy. But, the word unpredictability is definitely the right word to define this draft.
Yeah, and also another tweet from John McMullen, who covers the Eagles as well. He says the names I hear connected with the Eagles in no particular order is Jordan Davis, who's that big defensive tackle out of Georgia. He says he's an outside shot at 15. Chris Olave, the wide receiver from Ohio State, he has a good shot at being a 15. Jameson Williams, a wide receiver out of Alabama, it says he's declining by the day. I'm imagining his stock of the chance of being there at 15. Derek Stingler Jr., that is a trade-up option. He's a corner from LSU. Jermaine Johnson, who's the edge rusher, I believe, from FSU. That would be another trade-up option. He's somebody who's really risen up boards over the past, couple weeks. And then as well as Devontae Wyatt, who is the D tackle, I believe, from Georgia. He would probably be taken around 18 at the earliest. And there's also Lewis Sign and then Cam Jurgens in the second round and third round or second round around there. So, there's a lot of names not being thrown around in with the coming days. But to go back to that original point I made with the Eagles having a lot of smoke trading up, I think Kayvon Thibodeau would be a great option. They're looking for edge rushers. I think he's someone whose motives have been questioned, someone who doesn't really have the best motor. So people have really kind of questioned, his true love for football, which is, we hear a lot about that throughout the draft process when teams meet with players that they may question certain players, pure passion for the sport. But he's someone who came in to this, came into this season, this college football season as the number one guy. He looked like he was giving the number one overall pick. He still had a good year, but not as we've seen over the past couple of months, his stock has dropped, but he's definitely somebody if he can get right around 6 or 7. I mean, that's incredible value to get somebody at that point in the draft. And then you look at Kyle Hamilton. Even though I did say his pro day wasn't great with his 40 and stuff like that, he is an incredible playmaker. He does a lot of different things as a safety. He can line up in the box. He can play, single high. He can do a lot of different things, but that's another guy you can drop, and Howie's definitely going to be looking to try and trade up to get him. And then also Derek Stingley, who came in as a top cornerback this year as well. He dropped a little bit because I think he was injured all year. Didn't really, show off in his final year of eligibility. And then we saw Sauce Gardner, the Cincinnati quarterback, kind of overtake him as the top cornerback in the draft. But he's still really talented. And he could be a huge addition. And then quarterback's a huge hole right now for the Eagles. They only have Darius Slay and Vontae Maddox. They need another corner to throw in there. And it looks like the free agency market is kind of thinned out a little bit over the past couple of weeks, especially with Gilmore getting snatched up in free agency. So I think he's a huge option too. So I look at those three, Thibodeau, Hamilton, and Stingley as straight up options. I think it's the most likely. If I had to pick from one of them, it's tough. I probably would go either Thibodeau or Stingley. Just because, even though I do like Hamilton, I think he's a really good player. I still think the Tyrann Mathieu situation is still in the Eagles' favor, because if they do walk out with Stingley, they can still go out to get Mathieu for the other safety position and walk into 2022 with a pretty good secondary. Or they go get Thibodeau that really fixes their pass rush problem that they had going into the offseason. They still have Sweat. That you bring in Hassan Reddick. Now you have Thibodeau. You got Brandon Graham back with probably a lesser role now, which is good with coming off an Achilles injury. And then you have Derek Barnett, hopefully not touching the field, but that's but it's still a pretty good, list along with, the defensive tackles you have with Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, and then hopefully Milton Williams taking the next step going into his second year.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you on the Thibodeau point. I would probably take him just because I think he will be, the most NFL ready. I just think, what he was doing at Oregon coming in, I mean, obviously a year ago is a really rough sketch of this draft, but being the top projected overall pick about a year ago coming into this. So, I do agree with the safety point. I mean, if Stingley is the better option to trade for, I would take him over Hamilton. But Thibodeau is a guy that.
Well, my point, if they think Hamilton's going to be a better player than Stingley, I wouldn't draft Stingley over Hamilton because there's, we can get Tyrann Mathieu. If you think Hamilton's going to be a superstar in his league, then you have to go and get him. I wouldn't draft on the basis of, we have to fill this hole. You got to go best player available at this point. This team's deprived of talent.
I agree. Yeah. And that was going to be my next point. I mean, I have about 6 or 7 positions that I would like to address, in the draft. And with saying that, I mean, 6 or 7 positions is very hard to kind of address in a draft like this with all the unpredictability and, some of the lowest grades for some first round talent in a while. So I think really that they need to focus on the defensive end of the ball in the early rounds. And then, to my point with the wide receivers, I mean, this class is so deep, and you look at some of these names, they were some of the top wide receivers, obviously in college football. And when I say that, I mean, even through 8 to 15, it's, some of these guys were absolutely tearing it up. So, I mean, you got guys in the lower rounds that you can go and get in the second, third, even fourth round, such as, Mechie. You have David Bell from Purdue, who put up a pretty good year last year. You have Jahad Dotson. He's at 43. Obviously, a little undersized, but the kid can move. Great player at Penn State. You have George Pickens, and then Alave and up is really going to be the upper echelon of wide receivers, in my opinion. But like I said, you can go and get a guy like that in the second or third round. I think this Eagles team really needs to focus on, secondary, D-line. And then, one of my other big ones was obviously replacing that near and dear guy to our heart, who's Jason Kelsey. Obviously, the center, Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa, has been thrown around as a big name. So, even getting him, I wouldn't be too disappointed, as the Eagles obviously pride themselves on that offensive line position. So a lot of options for him here. But to your point, best player available. And if you can go up, get a guy like a Thibodeau, Hamilton, Stingley, or really anyone else for that matter that can kind of recycle them. And when I say recycle, be at 6, maybe fall to 11, a guy that could definitely be as high as 6 and falls down. I mean, you got to go up and get him. So I think there's going to be a lot of plays here for Howie when the first round kicks off tomorrow. And I think the first 3 picks are going to tell a lot, where this draft is going. So we'll see. It's going to be pretty crazy to maybe see an O-lineman taken top 3 overall, but it's very possible as well.
Well, I'm pulling up this mock draft just for the sake of discussion. Bucky Brooks, who does who covers the draft for the NFL.com. He's an NFL.com analyst, and he does a lot of mock drafts along with, I think, Daniel Jeremiah as well. So his mock draft, he has number 1 pick, Jacksonville Jaguars. He has them taking an offensive tackle, Ike Ekwonu, NC State offensive tackle, which, it actually would make sense with just Trevor Lawrence is their most important player. And, taking your offensive tackle and protecting him, having a left tackle.
And also, not to interrupt, I mean, they got ETN last year. He got hurt as well. He was a first-round pick. So they're going to look to kind of build a wall in front of him as well to get going.
Yeah, so I don't know if he's the number 1 guy, on the board, but, they probably at this point be drafted for need, even though, I mean, it is, you just don't know what's going to happen at this point. I haven't looked at the odds on who's going to be number 1 overall pick, but we'll probably look at that after this. But they have the Lions taking Hutchinson to number 2. I think the Lions will be pretty happy with that. They have the Texans taking number 3, Sauce Gardner, who is that fast rising corner from Cincinnati. Had a dominant career in Cincinnati with the Bearcats, and he probably fit in really well with Lovie Smith's scheme there. New York Jets at number 4 taking Trayvon Walker. At defensive end out of Georgia. At 5, they had the Jets not the Jets. At the 5, they had the Giants taking Evan Neal, the tackle out of Alabama, which I think the Giants would be pretty happy about. They've been trying to rebuild this offensive line for a very long time, and to have him fall to the number 5, I think they'd be pretty happy. And then he gets to 6 is Charles Cross, who's a tackle with the Carolina Panthers taken. But that was one of the teams that Ian Rappaport talked about as a trade back option, along with the Giants again at 7. I think they would probably maybe trade out of that 7 spot if they were happy about who fell at 5. And then they have at 7, the Giants taking Stingley, which is one of the players we mentioned as a trade up. At 8, they have the Falcons taking Garrett Wilson. With Calvin Ridley, it's not surprising. He's been usually docked as the number 1 guy or number 1 wide receiver in this draft. At 9, they have Thibodeau going to Seattle. The Jets at 10 taking Drake London from USC to wide receiver. 11, they have the Commanders taking Kyle Hamilton, Notre Dame. The Vikings at 12, they haven't taken Jameson Williams, which I don't really get that pick. I don't know. Is Adam Thielen still with Minnesota? He's not a free agent, right? Yeah,
I believe he's still with them, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a little bit of a surprise.
So that'd be Thielen, Jefferson, and Williams.
Yeah, that'd be a heck of a wide receiver core. I mean, that'd be pretty hard to stop if you're a defense in 1 week. But I mean,
definitely would.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be that difficult if Kirk Cousins thrown to him too. But the Texans at 13 from the Deshaun Watson trade. They have him taking Jermaine Johnson, the edge rusher. It'd be pretty good for the defense if they walk out with Sauce Gardner and Jermaine Johnson. With that, and then 14, the Ravens taking Jordan Davis. And then we get the Eagles at 15. He has them taking Chris Olave with the 15th pick. I'd be okay with this. I think a wide receiver is pretty needed. Yeah, and then they have following 2 picks is Penning, the tackle to the Saints, and then they have Trent McDuffie to the Chargers with the corner. And at 18, they haven't taken Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle. I don't know if they walked out the first round, which I don't think they're going to make 15 and 18. I think they're going to trade up or trade back with the 18 spot. But I'd be okay with this first round, but I wouldn't love it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that they could. I think they will definitely trade one of the picks, and I think they're going to make their way up this board. I think Howie realizes the importance and the opportunity as well that he has of some of these higher prospects, falling down into his lap. So, we saw last year they traded up and got their guy, Devontae Smith, and how he's proven to be a bit of a menace as well. I'm sure if he sees, a team such as the Giants or even the Commanders, have an opportunity at a guy that he may want, definitely could motivate him to possibly trade up in front of them and get his guy. So totally think it's possible and think it's likely that they only make one pick. Also, quick stat here. I'm sure everyone's aware of this, but the drought of the Eagles drafting a linebacker in the first round, it's been since 1979, and it's Jerry Robinson from UCLA. So the chances of the Eagles drafting a linebacker is probably slim to none, but that's one of my areas of needs or position of need down here.
I don't think
could definitely help as well.
Yeah, I don't think they do it. I don't
think they do either.
They have Edwards, they have Davion Taylor, and then they signed that guy from the Chargers. Who?
No, not Reddick. It slipped in my mind as well.
Yeah, they signed the Chargers guy too, who I think is gonna have a real opportunity of starting as well. They devalued it. They don't really value linebacker at this point, and I know it upsets people. But it looks like, who's that Georgia linebacker that's dropping? I forget his name.
It's Kazir White, by the way. They signed.
What's up?
Kazir White.
Kazir White, and then also
and the guy Dean they're looking at.
Yeah, Nakobe Dean's someone
Dean.
Yeah, they thought he's really dropped out the first round. I'm looking at this mock draft from Bucky Brooks. I don't even see him in the first round. And that's
he's 5'11". That could definitely be
a
factor.
It's definitely his size has been a huge issue. But listen, he's had a remarkable. If you have a chance to get him in the second round, I think that's a pretty big win. But yeah, they. Not a lot. Look at the back end of the first round. There's some guys that stand out. Arnold Ebiketie, who's someone who played at Penn State, had a huge year last year. He was a Temple transfer. Bryce Hall will be the first running back off the board at 25, which is a little surprising. He's from Iowa State. George Karlaftis is someone who's a edge rusher who's kind of slipped a little bit. They have Devin Lloyd going 21 to the Patriots. I'm sure Bill Belichick would be thrilled about that one. He has the first quarterback taken, Malik Willis at 20 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It seems like that's the most smoke. Looks like Tom was a big Malik Willis guy. I
believe he does go there.
Yeah, that's the only quarterback he has going in the first round. He doesn't have Kenny Pickett going in the first round, which is a little surprising. I think he does go in the first round. Kenny Pickett. I think he's only going to be two quarterbacks. I don't think Matt Corral goes. I think he's an early second round guy. Yeah. I don't love Chris Olave. He definitely has speed, which I just don't think they really needed the wide receiver spot. But they do need talent in general. So, Olave does have some big playability. I think, that would help the offense explosiveness, and they do need some weapons just on the outside in general. So I think that would. I don't love it, but that'd be a pretty good pick. And then the Devontae Wyatt one's interesting. I know that there's a lot of smoke with him with the Eagles about a couple weeks ago. I think he's kind of died off a little bit. I don't get taking a defensive tackle right now, especially with Milton Williams. You have to, but they kind of see him as like a tweener a little bit. So I don't know. I can look at other ones too. We can discuss off that, but I think that the trading up to 15 does seem like a pretty reasonable option, and it seems like it has a good chance of happening Thursday night.
I believe so as well. And on the subject of trades, not a big one, but saw, a tweet today that, the Eagles are looking to shop, Reagor. So they'll get a 6th round pick for him, maybe.
That'd be nice.
5th round pick if they get rid of him. But, could be another sign there that they might go and get a guy and they might have their eyes rather on a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round if they move on from him. So
Yeah,
I don't think anyone in Philadelphia would be upset about that. And they went and got, a Dotson if he slid to the third round. I think a lot of people wouldn't want to be too upset, like I said.
Yeah, I love John Dotson. So I saw a lot of him play, or a lot of plays at Penn State this year. And I mean, he was literally the only legit target or legit weapon they had on their offense. So he made that
Or
offense.
even Mechie for that matter. I think they're right around the same ranking. So I think you can see them in the second to the third.
I really forgot about him. Like he's kind of like slipped off a little bit too. I mean, he had an injury too, right? He had a knee injury.
I believe he had an ACL injury too. Now that you said it.
Yeah, and he was originally mocked like really early on in this process as a first round guy, wasn't he?
So I think he was in 15-20 area originally.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I completely forgot about him actually.
Yeah, he's ranked 11th overall on the CBS draft board, and ACL injury he suffered.
Wow. Yeah, I know another guy has been thrown around a lot of people like is George Pickens out of Georgia. He's like a second round guy. That's someone that they can go after if they don't get like someone in the first round. If they want to go grab somebody in the second round, he's a pretty realistic option.
So that's kind of my point. With this deep wide receiver class, I think they can really address a key area of need in the first round and get a really good guy and save those picks. They have a ton of them. I think they have the most picks in the draft this year with 10. Barring obviously any trades, but they could definitely go and get a skilled position guy in the wide receiver position in the second, possibly, like I said, third round.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like there's anything really solidified, not only with the Eagles, but with really any of the top 10 picks going on. I feel like it's going to be a lot of surprises, and I'm sure the NFL is happy about that. They want as much surprise as they possibly can get. But I think that, I definitely think that that trade up option for the Eagles is pretty realistic. And if you see one of those real impact players fall, you have the assets to go up and get it. I know there's a lot of talk about the Eagles moving picks the next year and trying to get as many picks as they possibly can to try and rebuild this team. But it's a matter of trying to improve the team now, and try and bring in talent. You have to make those picks eventually. So might as well, if you really like a player dropping and you think you can get great value for him, if you can just go up and get him and he can come in and be a real impact player, then you have to do it.
Yep, I totally agree. So I wrote down 5 guys at 15 that I think could be there, and if are there, this doesn't include trades or anything. I had 5 guys. I don't know if you have any guys off the top of your head, but my 5 were Trent McDuffie from Washington, Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, Jameson Williams from Alabama. And real quick, I know I've been harping on the second and third round pick with wide receivers, but I feel like if that kid slides to 15, you definitely have to move up not move up. You can just get him without moving up. Jordan Davis from Georgia. And then, like I mentioned, Tyler Lindenbaum from Iowa. But I believe that would be more of a, if they stuck with the 18 pick rather than the 15 pick, he would be, a guy to possibly eye. So those are my top 5. And then my honorable mention, or my 6th, would be, Chris Alaba. I'm a big fan of this dude. I don't know if his game's going to fully translate to the NFL just because he is a bit undersized. He did play at Ohio State with a lot of talented guys, but he's another guy that I think could translate and be a pretty successful player in the NFL.
Yeah, there's pretty good wide receivers in the middle of that first round. So I think if they walk out with one of them, you look at guys like Olave or Jameson Williams or Drake London, or even Garrett Wilson, which it seems like the one name that is pretty unlikely because he's going to go pretty high. And I don't like the idea of trading up for a wide receiver. They probably trade up for like one of those key defensive spots, like we're talking about with Thibodeau or Hamilton or Stingley. So that seems, and if that's the case, and it seems like the trade up is going to be the most likely option. It's a matter of if they find a suitor that's willing enough to take a deal with them. I don't know. I mean, picking from those 3, I'd probably take Thibodeau. If all 3 are available for playing that game, I'd probably go Thibodeau as my number 1. I just think that pass rushers are so big, and he is big time. He has a big personality too, which I like. And he's extremely talented. I think he has to get motivated by the right people, and hopefully the Eagles organization is good enough and can steer him in the right direction. But
no better place to fire fire you up. Jeez, can't even talk. Than Philadelphia, dude.
Yeah.
So I think you're totally right. I think if he came here, he would be in a good spot, and I think he could produce at a high level.
That's a pretty good pass rushers, like I said. Like you got Sweat. He's not a star, but he's a nice player. You got Hassan Reddick coming off some pretty good years, and Thibodeau and Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett. Even though like he's the fifth guy, is still pretty good. There. I think that's that's a pretty good group going into 2022.
Totally agree. So
yeah, and then even with the Stingley thing too, like him slaying of Maddox, I like that cornerback group too.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't really mess up with those three guys. I think like you just need impact players, man. And I don't know. I always been having a pretty rough go at it with the drafts. He needs to
maybe stay away from the wide receivers here in the first round.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Those are the three big holes, and they just need talent. So I'm all for best player available. So anything you want to say before we go? I know we mentioned the Rager thing a little bit, but is there any other Eagles news you want to touch on?
Nah, I think if I had to pick one guy that I think the Eagles draft without trading up, and if they stayed at the 15, I would probably say Trent McDuffie is who they take at 15.
Okay, I think for the 15th pick, if they trade up and they go into the top 10, I think they take Thibodeau. If they stay at 15, I think they go wide receiver. I think they go Jameson Williams. I just don't know if he's going to be there, but if he's there at 15 and they're on the board at 15, I think they go wide receiver. I think he's good. I like Jameson Williams a lot. I think he's going to be a good player. So, if he's there, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say he'd probably be the only wide receiver that I would really, really want to take. I mean, obviously, I don't think Garrett Wilson's going to slide that far, but Garrett Wilson would be the only other guy I'd really want to take at the wide receiver position without trading up.
Yeah. Hey, so is that good? You good? Anything else we want to touch on the draft or no?
All good to go. Make sure you check us out on Saturday, 10 to 11 every week.
Yeah, Saturday we'll be reacting to the first 2 days of the draft. I think Saturday will be day 3. That'll be round 4 to 7. We were reacting to that. The Phillies, with the huge 4-game series they played tonight too. They won the first one. Hopefully they can win the second one and go on their way to win this series. The Rockies, they need to start winning some games with some big Mets series coming up. And then the Sixers, man. I think Saturday would that be the day of Game 7 if Game 7 happens? I think it would be.
It will be. I don't think they'll play Sunday Game 7. I think it would be a Saturday. So I personally think they're going to come back for a Game 7. I'm scared as hell. But they put themselves in this position. Going to need, big stars, obviously, like Harden to step up and some of these other guys. But, we'll see if they lose Game 6. I mean, it's going to be a tough Game 7. They're really going to have to turn the ship around for sure.
Yeah, it's not looking hot. So then, and then not much on the Flyers talk either. So not much to talk about the Flyers. There's not much to talk about the Flyers either. So yeah, I know. Yeah. So all right. Follow us on social media at Connor Mark Show, as well as to subscribe to the YouTube page. And make sure you tune into 95.3 WCHE on Saturday mornings at 10 to 11 to listen to Connor Mark Show live on the radio. So till then, Connor Gabe, Mark Rogers, see you guys soon.